Good morning, church. I want to welcome you to church this morning, and I want to welcome our family online. Thank you for joining us this morning. So, straight go to the book of Ecclesiastes. I told you until we finish the book of Ecclesiastes, every time you see me standing here, we'll be talking about Ecclesiastes, even on Christmas Day. Okay, Ecclesiastes chapter 8. We'll do the whole chapter. How wonderful to be wise, to analyze and interpret things. Wisdom lights up a person's face, softening its harshness. Obey the king, since you vowed to God that you would. Don't try to avoid doing your duty, and don't stand with those who plot evil, for the king can do whatever he wants. His command is backed by great power. No one can resist or question it. Those who obey him will not be punished. Those who are wise will find a time and a way to do what is right. For there's a time and a way for everything, even when a person is in trouble. Indeed, how can people avoid what they don't know is going to happen? None of us can hold back our spirit from departing. None of us has the power to prevent the day of our death. There is no escaping that obligation, that dark battle. And in the face of death, wickedness will certainly not rescue the wicked. I have thought deeply about all that goes on here under the sun, where people have the power to hurt each other. I have seen wicked people buried with honor, and yet they were the very ones who frequented the temple and now praised in the same city where they committed their crimes. This too is meaningless. When a crime is not punished quickly, people feel it is safe to do wrong. But even though a person sins 100 times and still lives a long time, I know that those who fear God will be better off. The wicked will not prosper, for they do not fear God. Their days will never grow long like the evening shadows. And this is not all that meaningless in the world. In this life, good people are often treated as though they were wicked, and wicked people are often treated as though they were good. This is so meaningless. So I recommend having fun, because there is nothing better for people in this world than to eat, drink, and enjoy life. That way, they will experience some happiness along with all the hard work God gives them under the sun. In my search for wisdom and in my observation of people's burdens here on earth, I discovered that there is ceaseless activity day and night. I realized that no one can discover everything God is doing under the sun. Not even the wisest people discover everything, no matter what they claim. Amen. So, the preacher, for those that have been following, we talked about how the preacher would go and look for wisdom and try to understand life and everything that's going on in life. And most of his quest, he found himself being frustrated and disappointed with what was happening in life. And in chapter 8, it looks like that's one of those chapters that we also find him frustrated with what's happening in life. So he starts by saying it is wonderful to be wise, to be able to analyze things, to be able to interpret things. And he actually says, wisdom lights up a person's face. It softens his hardness. And he's actually saying wisdom brings a smile to the face. For somebody who is wise, they know that their future is set. Their face is glowing, because wise people are those ones that fear God. And for people who fear God and shun sin, one of the things that are wise people that are living on this earth right now, they are assured of heaven after this life. They are assured of a life eternal in Christ. So on this earth, the wise are living a better life compared to fools. These things we established already. Excuse me. The wise are not keeping grudges. The wise are busy working hard with their hands. And things are going on for them because they are wise. And so even their face is glowing because they are smiling more compared to fools. However, as life goes on, the preacher discovers that it's not as straightforward as he had expected. In verse 2, he says, "Obey the king, since you vowed to God that you would. Don't try to avoid doing your duty, and don't stand with those who plot evil, for the king can do whatever he wants. His command is backed up by great power. No one can resist or question it. And those who obey him, will not be punished. Those who are wise will find a time and the right way, and the way to do what is right." In verse 6 it says, "For there's a time and a way for everything, even when the person is in trouble." Now, for us who are living now, maybe we don't understand the power that kings possessed. I should use that word, possessed. Because even in countries where there's monarchy, like in the UK, the monarchy doesn't have the power that the kings of this time possessed. So because we are in a democracy, we look at the kings maybe as a president. Now the president, in as much as he has power, his power is limited. There are things that the president cannot do in this country. If it doesn't matter how much he says he wants to do it, he will not do, because he doesn't have those powers. But in a monarchy, the king has all power. The king is law. What he says is what happens. So the king is law, and everyone is obligated to obey the law. And so Solomon says, you made a vow to God that you will obey the king. He's addressing the children of Israel, and they had made that vow in Samuel, that they would obey their king. Because when they asked for a king, Samuel told them, he will do all these things. There's a list of the things that the king will do. He will require your sons to work for him as slaves. He will do all these things, but he said, no, we still want a king. And so he says, you vowed, you said you're going to obey your king, so now you must obey the king. Now, when God requires of us to obey the king, as he's reminding us, it's not because the king is a good person. God required them to obey the king because it is God who established that authority. So authority was established by God. And so the preacher says you must obey the authority of that office, because the authority of that office was established by God. When you obey the authority of that office, you are not obeying the person. You are obeying God. Now, we have the president in this country, and then we have the laws that govern this land. And for us, we don't have a king. And yet God requires of us to obey the laws of the land, because it is God who established the authority that is in this country. And when we obey, we are not obeying the office, the person, we are obeying the authority of the office. Our obedience doesn't come because the person is performing well in the office. when the people that live in the monarchy, when they obey the king, they don't obey the king because the king is very good or the king is very competent. Actually, last time I talked about kings, I said the kingship was just passed down by blood. And some of the kings were stupid people, dull people. But yet, just by the virtue of them being born in the king's place, in the king's house, they became kings themselves when their father died, and yet they were stupid people. If you want to see how this happened, go and study the monarchs in Europe, because they have their history is written down compared to ours. We don't know much of what happened to our monarchs here. But their history is written down, and you'll find how some of the people that became kings were stupid people who didn't know anything. And then to add to that, they also were intermarrying in their families because they wanted to keep the royal line. And then they found themselves marrying cousins, and then most of them were sick because all the deformed genetics were just passed down in the families. So you had kings who were deformed and all that, but they were kings. Because it was just in blood. And yet people were intelligent people, wise people were required to obey. Not because the person was competent, but because God required of them. So God doubles down on this. This is the Old Testament that we are reading, Ecclesiastes chapter 8. But even in the New Testament, God doubles down on this in Romans chapter 13. So go to Romans chapter 13. From verse 1, it says, everyone must submit to governing authorities, for all authority comes from God, and those in positions of authority have been placed there by God. So anyone who rebels against authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and they will be punished. For the authorities do not strike fear in people who are doing right, but in those who are doing wrong. Would you like to live without fear of authorities? Do what is right, and they will honor you. The authorities are God's servants, sent for your good. But if you're doing wrong, of course, you should be afraid, for they have the power to punish you. They are God's servants, sent for the purpose of punishing those who do what is wrong. So you must submit to them, not only to avoid punishment, but also to keep a clear conscience. Pay your taxes too, for these same reasons. For government workers need to be paid. They are serving God in what they do. Do we have any civil servants here? We don't have civil servants. Oh, we only have one. You are doing God's work. Give to everyone what you owe them. Pay your taxes and government fees to those who collect them, and give respect and honor to those who are in authority. Now, when Paul is writing this, I wish he was writing to a church that was under a good government. Then would have had an excuse and said, oh, but he was writing to a church that was thriving under a good government. But we don't have that excuse because Paul is writing to the church in Rome. Now, just a little background. Christianity came out of Judaism. Judaism was a religion that, for the Romans, they had given it a legal status. So if you are practicing Judaism, you were free to practice your religion. So Christianity came out of Judaism. But as time went by, Christianity weaned itself off Judaism. And as it weaned itself off Judaism, as it's standing on its own, now the Romans were saying, what is this new thing? Because the Jews are rejecting it. So it's not under Judaism anymore. So this is a new thing. So because of that, they were suspicious of Christianity. So the Christians were occasionally persecuted until, I think, 331, when Constantine came and made Christianity the religion of the Romans. But before that, there were occasional persecutions. So Paul is writing to this church that is under the Roman government, which is persecuting the church. And he's telling the Christians, obey the government. Obey the laws. Some of the reasons why Christians were being persecuted was because the Romans placed high value on loyalty. And so when Christians say, Christ is my Lord, for them that meant you are saying that Caesar is not your Lord. And so that was a direct conflict with the Romans. So Paul is saying, obey the law. Live a life that will not arouse attention to yourself. Obey the laws, and then you will not have to deal with the Romans. Let me use this example. I think maybe 3 months or 4 months ago, I don't remember when, there was this girl in South Africa who was in the pageant. I think it was Miss South Africa or something. And that girl, little by little, people started saying, she's not South African, she's not South African. And then it grew big. We had two sides, other people saying she's South African, other people saying she's not. Because she had a Nigerian father and a Mozambican mother. So how does she become a South African? And it was a big fight. Some people you are just jealous. All these things that you know what happens online. And then some people keep on pressed until the government had to do something about it. So they went and searched and found that the mother had forged the papers. She had actually taken another child's identity. So there was a South African child that was not registered because this Mozambican girl or Nigerian Mozambican girl took the identity of that girl and registered and took her ID. And at the end of the day, she was disqualified from the pageant. Of course, Nigeria said, please come, we'll take you and all that. But the thing was, I remember sitting down and saying, I know there are so many people who have done the same things, but they're not entering beauty pageants. They're just living low lives, and nobody goes and digs. But once you do something that attracts attention, people are going to start digging. So Paul is saying, you Christians, live a life that doesn't attract attention. It doesn't mean that he's saying that you shouldn't pray, because the Romans hated their gatherings. They said, these people are gathering in their homes. What are they discussing? It doesn't mean that you should stop worshiping God and start worshiping the Romans' gods, because the Romans hated that Christians were not worshiping their gods. It doesn't mean that they should live a life of sin to blend in, to worship them, to participate in the pagans' festivals, to blend in with the people. That's not what Paul meant. Paul meant live a life that will not attract attention in such a way that you are not breaking the law, so that they come and say, these Christians are breaking these laws. And I see that even in how we live. You break traffic laws and you say, the policemen are persecuting me. But you broke the laws. You skip work and you go for prayers. Instead of working, you are at the prophet's place. And then your boss quizzes you on that. And what do you say? My boss hates me. I went for prayers and my boss doesn't want me to pray. No, your boss wants you to pray, but at the right time. Don't skip work to go to prayer. Don't skip class to go to prayer. Don't think that God is going to write exams for you because you skipped class to go for prayer. And then we have some ladies who are married to unbelievers. Every morning they are at the prophet's place. They are praying the whole day, praying for their husbands. But they leave their house dirty. They come back home, the husband comes home, he finds no food. Because the woman was at the prophet's place, praying for the husband. Those prayers are misplaced. If you stayed home, maybe your husband would have changed quicker. If you cleaned, the husband would have changed quicker. So Ecclesiastes says you should do the right things at the right time. Don't do things that will attract attention, unnecessary attention, and say and claim that you are being persecuted for Christ. By advocating for lawful, peaceful lives, Paul was saying that Christians should be able to coexist in the Roman culture without compromising their faith. They had to stand out for the right things, not stand out for the wrong things. So Paul is saying, if you obey the law, you will not attract attention to yourself. Because there will be no need to investigate Christians. But if you are the same people that are breaking the law, you attract attention to yourselves. And we have seen this so many times, that people who claim to be Christians, when there's a scandal, they make the whole thing about every Christian. They bring attention, wrong attention to the church. Somebody commits fraud at his office, and the first thing people say, hey, but that person is an elder in his church. Like when they were employing him, they said, are you an elder? We were going to employ you because you're an elder. When they were employing, they looked at his certificate. But when there's a scandal, the first thing they will say, that person is an elder in his church. So, Paul did not just write to Romans, he also wrote to Timothy about praying for those that are in leadership. And I'm not going to read Timothy because of time. But we, as Christians, are required to obey the law. We must be the first ones to obey the law. If they want to find somebody who keeps time at the office, it must be you. If they want to find somebody who is a hard worker at the office, it must be you. Then we go to verse 7, Ecclesiastes 8, verse 7. It says, indeed, how can people avoid what they don't know is going to happen? None of us can hold back our spirit from departing. None of us has the power to prevent the day of our death. There is no escaping that obligation, that dark battle. And in the face of death, wickedness will certainly not rescue the wicked. I have thought deeply about all that goes on under the sun, where people have power to hurt each other. Now, the preacher is still looking at what's happening on earth. And he's saying, okay, if you are wise, you obey the law. Then you will not be punished. You live quiet lives. But then he continues and says, but I have seen that no one is escaping death. Even with all the wisdom that people have, no one is escaping death. He says, even with the wisdom that people have, no one has ever managed to stop pain or suffering. You plan your trip, I'm going to go to Mzuzu for Duncan's wedding, and then there's no fuel. And you are disappointed and frustrated because you are geared to do something, but the trip has failed. I don't know about you, but when my trip fails, I get frustrated. Okay? With all the planning and everything, this is beyond your control. You have no control over fuel in this country. And so this is what life is all about. There are uncertainties in life. You can plan very well, have everything set, and yet eventualities come, and everything is in disarray. You can try to be good to everyone, but still you find people who are going to be cruel to you. That's why he says, I thought deeply about all that happens under the sun, where people have power to hurt each other. Like people just wake up sometimes and say, I want to hurt this person. They do. And they just create a story about you. You have never been in that place and they say, we saw this person here. And they'll go ahead, and especially now with AI, they'll put your face there. And people believe that you were in that place. And yet you were not there. People have power to hurt other people. People that they don't know. I told you the other time I saw a photo of one of my distant niece. And that photo was used, and somebody just wrote a story. Oh, this girl did this. You know how on internet. This girl did this. She has left her husband and all that and all that. And there was a story there, a ridiculous story. And there was her face right there. I don't know where it came from, whether it came from my or somewhere. But when I saw it, I said, I know this person. And this is not her story. People do that. All these ridiculous stories sometimes that you see, they're just using people's pictures. And imagine the hurt that those people feel. Imagine if you just saw your picture somewhere and people are saying, oh, you did this ridiculous thing. And the person who has done that doesn't even know you. So just like you cannot control wind, you cannot also control what happens in life. So you can resign and say, so what's the use? What's the use? I do all the planning and it still doesn't work. I try to live a quiet life that doesn't even attract any attention. I'm not even on any social media platform. And yet, I still have people using my picture when I don't even know. Do you just resign? You can resign, but you can also turn to Christ. Amen? Because he knows the end from the beginning. Because he's the one that orders our steps. So even though there are eventualities in life, even though there are uncertainties in life, even though I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, I don't have the power to stop death. I don't have the power to stop hurt. I don't have the power to stop suffering. I have tried to live a good life. I have tried to live at peace with everyone, but yet suffering still comes. There's a song that, as I was writing, there's a song that, I think it's a Seventh-day hymn. Zintu zambiri zamawa, zosazindikirika, komawo sunga zamawa, adzandigwira dzanja. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know how much life I have. I don't know how much life my family has. But I cannot stop living because of those uncertainties. Because I know the one who keeps tomorrow. He's the one that is going to hold my hand. So for me, instead of giving up or resigning, I would rather turn to him. Because he is the only one that is certain. All these other things are not certain. They are not guaranteed. But he is the one that is guaranteed. Because he's Jehovah Shammah, always there. He's the unchanging God. In verse 10, I have seen wicked people buried with honor, yet they were the very ones who frequented the temple and now praised in the same city where they committed their crimes. This too is meaningless. When a crime is not punished quickly, people feel it is safe to do wrong. But even though a person sins 100 times and still lives a long time, I know that those who fear God will be better off. The wicked will not prosper, for they do not fear God. Their days will never grow long like the evening shadows. 11. And this is not all that is meaningless in the world. In this life, good people are often treated as though they were wicked, and wicked people are often treated as though they were good. This is so meaningless. Bad things happen to good people. Good things happen to bad people. Wicked people are given grand funerals. The whole town stops. They are praised in the cities, in the same cities where they committed their crimes. And I think for us it's so easy to picture this because we know it happens. You see how we praise our politicians after they have stolen our money? We don't have to go far. See it every day. Saying these people frequented the temple. So if they were frequenting the temple, it means they were religious. And we have some in the church. They frequent the church. They are in the church. They are good tithers. They are dedicated members of the church. And everybody in the church assumes this person is a Christian. This person is on fire. And so they die like that. And on their death, on their funeral, we will sing very loudly. This person was very dedicated. Let's sing the whole night. Put loudspeakers so that the whole town will not sleep. They'll only be hearing our songs. Make it very grand. Heaven has gained, heaven has gained. And yet they were wicked. And we know this very well. Because even in our culture, we don't talk about the bad of the people that are gone. So even though the whole town knew this guy was a crook, the church will go there and will sing songs and will say this man was a very good man. Only maybe one or two funerals that I have seen that people said, hey, this guy was a crook. And I haven't attended any of those. I just seen the clips. There was one that people just took the coffin and just ran with it to the graveyard and just threw it in the thing. And they said because he was, I think it happened in the central region, I think it was last year or early this year. But most of the times we still give them, we know that this was a murderer, we give them a decent burial. So because people are looking for decent burials, they will come to church and be part of the church, even though they don't believe what is being preached in the church. That's one of the reasons that people are still in churches today, because people are looking for grand funerals. You have those that, of course, apart from other things that people look for in the church. The church for some is just a place for social capital. A church for some is a place to find girlfriends and boyfriends. A church for some is a place to get more clients for their business, of exploitation. Because they are wicked people, they exploit people. So what a better place to find people to exploit apart from the church, because church people are more trusting. But of course, another one is people who are looking for a place to show their outfits because they don't go anywhere else apart from church. So if you have beautiful clothes, where else do you wear them? Yeah. You work in a place where you wear uniforms every day. The only place you have to wear is, at least go to church. People should see that you have these outfits. But apart from that, one of the biggest things why people are in church today is because they are looking for a grand funeral. So they pay their subscriptions for the church. They send their money, or they go to church just enough times for the people in that church to say they are members of this church, so that when they die, people can go and sing for them. They even talk trash about church and Christianity and God, but they don't have the guts to say, I don't believe in these things. So they just still stay. And they are the first ones, if there's a scandal in the church, they are the very first ones to talk about it to the non-believers. So they are members of the church, but all they're looking for is a grand funeral. And in some villages, there's a fee you pay if you are not a member of a church. If you have married or that doesn't have a church, you pay to the amfum. So now everybody joins the church. So the wicked are not being punished. They are prospering. And so verse 11 says, I'm seeing that the wicked are not punished. They are prospering. They have committed all these crimes, but it's not being punished. Maybe I can also do the same things. Because I thought these people will be punished, but they're not being punished. So maybe it's fine to do it. Because maybe they were coming to church because they were told, if you don't go to church, God is going to punish you. And so they see somebody didn't go to church today, the next week they didn't go, they're like, my mom lied to me. God doesn't punish people who don't go to church. And soon, especially university students, soon they don't come anymore. Because they are now in the university, they have seen that their mothers lied to them. God doesn't strike people who stay at home on Sunday. Or maybe because they are poor. So for them to eat, they need to pray. If they don't pray, they won't eat. So now they have started working. They have money. They don't need to pray to eat. So why should they go to church anymore? Why do they need God? The same passage, the same verses that I read, I want to read them in contemporary English version. I saw the wicked buried with honor, but God's people had to leave the holy city and were forgotten. None of this makes sense when we see criminals commit crime after crime without being punished. It makes us want to start a life of crime. They commit hundreds of crimes and they live a long time, in spite of the saying, everybody who lives right and respects God will prosper. But no one who sins and rejects God will prosper or live very long. So the preacher is saying, I expected that those that are not living right should be punished. They should not live long. They should die young. Because that's what he said. But I see that they are not dying young. They're actually living longer. They're actually prospering. And yet, the ones that fear God are the ones that are easily forgotten. They are treated badly. So he's wrestling with the apparent injustices in life. He's looking at all that and he's frustrated. Because this doesn't make sense. It should have been straightforward. The wicked perish. The righteous prosper. But that is not happening. And this is not the only person who struggled with this. Job struggled with this. In Job chapter 21. It's a long passage, but I don't want to explain. I want you to listen to the words. From verse 7. He says, why do the wicked prosper, growing old and powerful? They live to see their children grow up and settle down, and they enjoy their grandchildren. Their homes are safe from every fear, and God does not punish them. Their bulls never fail to breed. Their cows bear calves and never miscarry. They let their children frisk about like lambs. Their little ones skip and dance. They sing with tambourine and harp. They celebrate to the sound of the flute. They spend their days in prosperity. They go down to the grave in peace. And yet they say to God, go away. We want no part of you and your ways. Who is the Almighty, and why should we obey him? What good will it do for us to pray? They think their prosperity is of their own doing. But I will have nothing to do with that kind of thinking. Yet the light of the wicked never seems to be extinguished. Do they ever have trouble? Does God distribute sorrows to them in anger? Are they driven before the wind like straw? Are they carried away by the storm like chaff? Not at all. Well, you say, at least God will punish their children. But I say, he should punish the ones who sin so that they understand his judgment. Let them see their destruction with their own eyes. Let them drink deeply of the anger of the Almighty. For they will not care what happens to their family after they are dead. But who can teach a lesson to God, since he judges even the most powerful? One person dies in prosperity, completely comfortable and secure, the picture of good health, vigorous and fit. Another person dies in bitter poverty, never having tasted a good life. But both are buried in the same dust, both eaten by the same maggots. Look, I know what you're thinking. I know the schemes you plot against me. You will tell me of rich and wicked people whose houses have vanished because of their sins. But ask those who have been around, they will tell you the truth. Evil people are spared in times of calamity and are allowed to escape disaster. No one criticizes them openly or pays them back for what they have done. When they are carried to their grave, an honor guard keeps watch of their tomb. A great funeral procession goes to the cemetery. Many pay their respects as the body is laid to rest, and the earth gives sweet repose. So it's not just a preacher that saw this. Job saw it. And he's vivid in his explanation. Wicked people are given grand send-off. Their children prosper. Because for us, we think, because they store the money, this is cash gate money, it will end quickly. No, it doesn't end quickly. Actually, they learn to multiply it. Now they have bought more businesses from the cash gate money. Because in our language, we just say, no. They live comfortably on stolen money. If the money disappeared, people would have stopped stealing. But they keep on stealing because the money doesn't disappear. They enjoy it. People are still enjoying the cash gate money. They have built houses. The ones that finished them anyway. The other people didn't finish them. The houses are just lying in ruins because the cash gate came in the middle of their project. But they enjoy that money. They buy cars. And you and me are saying, Lord, why? Why? I thought these ones should have been punished for what they have done. The same was experienced by Asaph in Psalms 73. Psalm 73 from verse 1, it says, truly God is good to Israel, to those whose hearts are pure. But as for me, I almost lost my footing. My feet were slipping, and I was almost gone. For I envied the proud when I saw them prosper despite their wickedness. They seem to live such painless lives. Their bodies are so healthy and strong. They don't have troubles like other people. They are not plagued by problems like everyone else. They wear pride like jeweled necklace and clothe themselves with cruelty. These fat cats have everything their hearts could ever wish for. They scoff and speak only evil. In their pride, they seek to crush others. They boast against the very heavens, and their mouths thrust towards the earth. And so the people are dismayed and confused, drinking in all their words. What does God know, they ask? Does the Most High even know what's happening? Look at these wicked people, enjoying a life of ease, while their riches multiply. Now Asaph says, did I keep my heart pure for nothing? Did I keep myself innocent for no reason? I think that's where most Christians are. That's where we are most of the times. Lord, I'm keeping myself pure. Scholarships comes. Is that wicked person that gets a scholarship? I'm keeping myself pure. And I'm looking for a husband. Who gets a husband? That very loose girl that just comes to church once. All the boys in the church are following her. And you're asking the Lord, did I keep myself pure for nothing? I have given. I am dedicated. I'm in church every Sunday. Was that all for nothing? We finished school. That one that has never set their foot in church, they are the first ones to get employed. You go to the mountain, stay there 7 days, come back, continue walking. And that person, the moment they start work, they are given a company car. He says, I get nothing but trouble all day long. Every morning brings me pain. If I had really spoken this way to others, I would have been a traitor to your people. So I try to understand why the wicked prosper. But what a difficult task it is. Then I went into your sanctuary, O God, and I finally understood the destiny of the wicked. Truly, you put them on a slippery path and send them sliding over the cliff to destruction. In an instant, they are destroyed, completely swept away by terrors. When you arise, O Lord, you will laugh at their silly ideas, as a person laughs at dreams in the morning. Then I realized my heart was bitter, and I was all torn up inside. When he went into the sanctuary, he realized my heart was a problem. The problem is not that the wicked are prospering. The problem is my heart. It says, I was so foolish and ignorant. I must have seemed like a senseless animal to you. Yet I still belong to you. You hold my right hand. You guide me with your counsel, leading me into glorious destiny. Whom have I in heaven but you? I desire you more than anything on earth. My health may fail, my spirit may grow weak, but God remains the strength of my heart. He is mine forever. He says the problem is not the wicked are prospering. The problem is my heart. I had become envious of their things. I had forgotten what is more important to me. And when I went into the sanctuary, I discovered God is all that I need. I don't have to wish bad for the wicked. Their destruction is set in black and white. God has said it. He said it. Once a man dies, the next thing is what? Judgment. And that's not my part. I don't have to wish for that judgment now. Instead of looking at their things and looking at their lives and being envious of their lives, I should concentrate on the one who gave me this life. Because when I concentrate on him, then he satisfies me. But if I sit here and expect God to do my dirty work, because I see that that person is wicked in my sight, that person is wicked, therefore they deserve bad things to happen to them, and I expect God to do the bad things on my behalf, I'll be disappointed. And so many of us have been disappointed with God because we expected God to punish someone for us. We expect God to punish people for our sake. And I've said this before. Before you start saying, God, arise, oh God, and let your enemies be scattered, make sure you're not God's enemy. Because you may be scattered together with those that God is scattering. You want God to do your dirty work. You can't touch the anointed. If you came to God because you are afraid that the wicked will be punished, and you see that the wicked are not being punished, you start saying this Christianity thing is a fake thing. Because for you, God should do your dirty work. And so you see those wicked people prospering, and the words that you've been saying, chilango chilibasi pompano, is not happening. You get disappointed with God. If your righteousness is motivated by being afraid of God, soon that fear of God will wear off. If your righteousness is motivated by what you want from God, soon you'll be disappointed. Because it's not everything that you want that is going to give you. God wants us to willingly obey him, to willingly follow him. Even when the wicked look like they're getting away with murder. Jesus gave a parable in Matthew chapter 13 about the person who went and planted his wheat and somebody came and planted his own thing. He said, leave it, don't take it away. It is when we are harvesting that we'll put the chaff on the other side, the weeds on the other side, and we'll take the wheat on the other side. So every time you are in church, you are everywhere, you will know that there's always going to be those two groups. So indeed, life has uncertainties, and there is no justice on this earth. But we cannot live our lives expecting every crime to be punished. Some of us, maybe our relatives took away our property when our father died. When we are stuck in that place. And you see your relatives are still prospering. And you stop living. Because of that injustice that happened to you. God says, trust him. Because he's the one that is in control. Verse 15, so I recommend having fun because there's nothing better for people in this world than to eat, drink, and enjoy life. That way, they will experience some happiness along with all the hard work God gives them under the sun. In my search for wisdom and in my observation of people's burdens on earth, I discovered this ceaseless activity, day and night. So, in light of all the injustices and the mysteries of life, the preacher says you'd rather have a balanced life. Find joy in the simple pleasures of life. eating, drinking. Enjoy those things. Because these moments are gifts from God. You will not understand everything. You cannot stop what is going to happen. But you can enjoy your food. You can enjoy a cold drink, especially now when it's hot. Enjoy your toba. Maybe you can't afford Fanta, but you can afford toba, and you can enjoy it. Laugh at yourself sometimes when you make mistakes. Don't be too serious with life. Some of us are too serious with life. Don't even laugh. If I laugh today, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Hey, you don't know. That's why you must laugh today. At least when you are crying tomorrow, you'll be saying, at least yesterday I laughed. But what are you going to benefit if you didn't laugh today and tomorrow you're still crying? Your laughing today will not stop your crying tomorrow. So laugh anyway. Eat now when you still have an appetite. Because there are some people right now in hospital, they don't have an appetite. This same toba that you're saying, toba is too cheap, Pastor C. I wish I could afford, what is the most expensive drink? I don't know. Baptizer. Whatever expensive drink. Well, the Shamdo. It's, yeah? How much is Shamdo now? 15. For how many? 750 meals? Yeah. Don't say I can't afford Shamdo. Go and buy Toba. Enjoy it in this heat. Because some people can't even take Toba. Auntie Lamika doesn't take Toba. So enjoy it. Verse 17. I realize that no one can discover everything God is doing under the sun. Not even the wisest people discover everything, no matter what they claim. Since we are not able to understand life and its mysteries, even the wisest cannot fully comprehend God's word, then would rather just surrender to him, the one who understands everything, the one who made everything. So we go back to verse 1 where we started from. It says, wisdom is better. Okay? Wisdom is better. It is better. It is wonderful to analyze and interpret things. It lights up a person's face. But at the end, he still comes to the same conclusion. It says, even with all the wisdom, after I have looked at everything, looking at the mysteries of life, looking at the uncertainties in life, looking at the injustices in life, I've come to a conclusion that it doesn't matter how wise a person is. One, they cannot understand everything. The Bible says, the foolishness of God is wiser than men. So when we are at the epitome of our wisdom, it's still less than the foolishness of God. So we cannot understand everything. The day we understand everything, that's the day we become God. And because we cannot understand everything, we must trust in his sovereignty. Remember where we started from. The king has all the power. If the kings of this world have all the power and can do whatever they want, what about God? Why don't we want to give God the power that he deserves? We find that we have no problems with the kings of this world to have all the power, to be the law. But when God takes his rightful place as a king, we have problems. We stumble with that. Why did God take my father? I see this person still have their father. Why did he take my father? Well, you can't tell me that there's a reason for everything. What reason was it that he took my father? What did I gain when my father died? So when God is sovereign, we have problems. But we don't have problems with the kings of this world being sovereign, being the law. So the preacher says, even the wisest people cannot discover everything, no matter what they claim. Because we are limited. As humans, we are limited. We will not understand everything, but God is the omnipotent God. He has all the wisdom. And his plans never fail, because his plans are always perfect. If God had to redo a thing, then he wouldn't be God. Because then it would mean that God is not perfect. But God is perfect. And everything that he does is good. Whether to us is not good, whether to us it doesn't make sense, whether to us it feels like he had made a mistake. No, God has never made a mistake. Whatever you've gone through in life, it's not because God made a mistake. People make mistakes, but God has never made a mistake. Instead of being offended by God's sovereignty, we must turn to him and let him be the sovereign Lord that he is. We must go to him and say, Lord, I trust you with my life, because I don't have control anyway. I don't know what's going to happen in the next minute. In the next second, I don't know what's going to happen. The only thing I know is that he's Jehovah Shammah, who is always present. The only thing I know is that he is God that knows everything. That there is nothing that comes that he's shocked and says, I didn't realize that this would happen. He knows the end from the beginning. So therefore, I can put my trust in him. Because I know if I put my trust in him, I will not be disappointed. He says it in his word. Those that put their trust in him will not be put to shame. If you put your trust in him, you will not be put to shame. But if you want to fight him and say, I want God to do things my way, you will be put to shame, because you don't have that power. I don't know why we want to do things on our own when God has said, you can come to me. You don't know anything. You are a finite person, very limited. Why don't you trust the one who is not limited, the one who knows everything? Trust him with your life and say, Lord, be the Lord of my life. Because if you're Lord of my life, then I'm assured that even in the uncertainties of life, you are the only thing that is certain in my life. And if I can have you that is certain, then my future is set. I can face whatever comes my way. Because as long as you are alive, then everything else will be fine.